Would you pray with me? Almighty God, thank you for the honor to be involved in useful and necessary community work. Father, give this council the fortitude they need to bear the responsibility to govern. Help Mayor Everson to govern well. In the Holy Scriptures, you said that citizens ought to obey the governing authorities, since it is you that has put those very authorities in place. Therefore, I pray that critical thinking skills be endowed upon our mayor and all the city department heads, and for this council assembled here this evening. Lord, grant this council wisdom to discern when there are conflicting interests. Grant them a sense of the true needs of our people. Give them the ability to work together in harmony. Help them to find joy and fulfillment in their elected positions. Give them the assurance that what they do tonight would be of benefit to those who live and work in and around our beloved city of Mitchell. In the name of our Savior we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Sabers.
Here.
Rice.
Here.
Dosher. McCardle.
Here.
Barrington.
Here.
Allen.
Here.
Charks. Here. Smith.
Here. Okay, we have a quorum. We have a short executive session we need to go into before we start everything, so I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session according to South Dakota Codified Law 125-23 legal. Moved by Mr. Barrington, second by Mr. McCardle. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. My chair.
What about them Cowboys last night? It was a tough loss. I did
Okay, we're back in session. Approval of consent agenda items. Items appearing on consent agenda may be removed by a council member for discussion beginning formal agenda items. Is there anything anybody wishes to remove or discuss? Okay, entertain a motion. Motion by Mr. Rice. Second by Mr. Allen. Further discussion? Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to address these?
Is this your
Yes, this is your part if you needed.
part? Okay.
Good evening, David Lambert.
No, they're just, this is citizen commentary on the agenda. The items. They're on the MADC quarterly report, so yes.
Do you need me to?
No.
But I'll keep it to 3 minutes or less. Promise.
Promise is promise.
Yeah. You all should have received a copy of this in your packet. It's basically the third quarter report from the Chamber and Development. My portion, obviously, is on the last page of it. Dakota Heartland Development Association. Obviously, in this last quarter, we saw a culmination of a lot of housing development projects that equate to about $5 million of investment in 4 of my 5 communities. The 5th community, White Lake, is still waiting for the state and their matching dollars so that they can put some infrastructure in for housing development north of the newer high school that they have there. Of specific interest, obviously, is Tripp Development Corporation, who basically using a local builder and plans that they got from the Aberdeen Houses Are Possible, Happy Incorporated, footprint of about 930 square feet. We're able to build a home with a full basement, 2-car garage on an infill lot for just under $200,000. Still a lot of money, but in this day and age, obviously, they're in the process of completing that, and we've had a number of the newer legislators that are in that district come and take a look at it, and we've had other folks come and take a look at it. They did use some South Dakota housing dollars to basically cover some of the initial cost of the house, as well as cover any shortfalls, because obviously in a community like Tripp, this is the first new house that's been built in 20 years. And so, quite honestly, this is an opportunity for them to get a new house, but unfortunately, appraisers look at that and say, well, you know, what's it going to appraise at? So hopefully, we won't have to use too many of those South Dakota housing dollars to cover the difference. The final component is obviously, while housing's been critically important, communities like Corsica continue to look at business development. They've filled their business park that they built on the west side of 281 inside Corsica a number of years ago. We actually have 1 small lot remaining, and so we're looking at building on 23 acres just south of the former Notaboom Implement a new business development park. And cost estimates, preliminary cost estimates have come back at approximately $2.5 million, which seems like a lot of money, but to be honest with you, heavy-duty roads and infrastructure costs obviously are what they are. There's basically 15 new lots there, and we have a couple of existing businesses in the community that are looking for expansion, and this is basically propelling us to move boldly forward. That's really all I've got. I'll be honest with you, I appreciate your time and your continued funding.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hello, good evening. Tiffany Batdorf with the Chamber and Convention and Visitors Bureau. For quarter 3 for The chamber, we actually had 5 ribbon cuttings, which was great. It was a very busy quarter for us. We had 13 new members. We hosted College Palooza as one of our large events with Dakota Wesleyan, Mitchell Tech, and the Corn Palace, welcoming those students back to Mitchell. That's part of trying to engage them in downtown, get them to kind of see what we have downtown. It's not just their campus. Also, one of our newest projects are Accelerate Mitchell. We actually graduated 11 of our cohort from a Co-Starters program to help entrepreneurs here in Mitchell. And that's a program, we will have a second cohort that is coming up in June. So it'll be another 7 or 10-week course, but that first one was extremely successful. Wednesday, we have a resource fair that kind of wraps that program up. So Wednesday afternoon at Dakota Wesleyan, if you all are interested, you can pop by in that resource fair for small business and entrepreneurs in Mitchell. As far as the Convention and Visitors Bureau, we had a lot of things kind of going on. We had the Palace City Pre-Sturgis Party. We had over 5,000 people downtown in conjunction with Clockworks in the city, the Corn Palace. We also hosted Special Olympics, the bocce ball and softball, over a long weekend, which was a great event. We had 437 project that came through Corn Palace Plaza. And we also have our new Everything Mitchell app. So if you have not downloaded that, please look in the Apple or Android store and you can see that. That has chambers, CVB, so it's got events. You can find jobs, businesses, chamber members, and non-chamber members are also listed on there as well. Part of our Forward 2040, our Enhanced Mitchell, we hosted our informational meeting on the lake, which was a nice success for us. I think it was one of those events where you didn't really know what to expect. And then we also are wrapping up tomorrow with our judging for our window art contest. That will be some window clings on the building of 5th and Main.
Thank you.
So I keep getting messages that we have no audio. We do have audio because it's playing on our YouTube. So if they don't have audio online,
Go to YouTube.
that's the issue of the television. It's not our streaming. So if you get any more messages, I've had a bunch of them.
Text them back, tell them to go to YouTube.
I'm telling you because I'm getting
But are you
messages.
telling them?
That you can't, because they
You
can't
can't hear if
hear.
they're watching on
No,
TV.
I'm asking, can you type it?
No, because if they're watching on TV, all they get is the video and audio feed.
So how are they reaching out to you to tell you that they?
I'm hearing from counselors.
These guys are getting texts.
Got it. So are
And I have gotten texts saying that the TV is not working.
not paying attention.
Speak loud, Jerry, because they're not.
I'm telling you all, it is working on YouTube, but if the TV doesn't have it, I don't have any control over that.
Thank you, sorry.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. Thanks for having us. Just wanted to quickly give you a couple highlights on workforce housing, and business expansion and retention. Regarding workforce, you probably saw the article. Some of you were at the meeting where we had Kennedy Access Group in town. We had a nice meeting with them. Yes, it is possible to recruit legal immigrants, but you really need to have 3 employers get together and say that we are ready to hire 50 people. So that's kind of the threshold that we're working at. We met with Smokey Houston from Huron. He's a former recruiter with Dakota Provision, and he's retiring, and he's going to be working for Kennedy Access and be working in Huron and in our area, so it's kind of a prime time to bring some immigrants to Mitchell. The catch is that it takes about 2 years to recruit once you decide you want to do it. Since our meeting, we've heard from several ag sector employers who need workers. These are EB3 workers here who come and stay and become Americans. They're not just seasonal people. The biggest thing we learned was that we need a Smokey for each of these employers to bring these people into the community and get them introduced to the community. So how did we get here? Why do we have this shortness of workers? Well, labor participation in our area dropped by 2%. In the last few years. Over the next 5 years, we expect 526 new jobs in our area. The bad news is that our retirement rate is actually higher than the average for the United States. And in the next 5 to 10 years, in our area, we expect 7,500 people to retire, probably some of the people in this room. Anyway, so if we're going to be losing 750 workers a year, and we're going to be sharing 526 jobs, and this is going to be a continuing problem. And so even it may take 2 years to bring them, it's worth the investment now. So good things happening with business recruitment. We met with the Governor's Office of Economic Development, and we've been invited to apply for a local infrastructure improvement grant. We have a business in Mitchell expanding, which is great news. And we've also responded to some RFIs. So not too much to tell in workforce housing. I think you know about that. And I just want to say a thank you to the housing builders in our community outside of this amount of efforts, but a lot of people are working on getting housing in Mitchell, including some people in the room this evening. So thanks to them. Any questions for our office? We appreciate your help, and we appreciate the budget process this year. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address consent agenda items? Okay, roll call, please.
Dosher. McCardle.
Aye.
Barrington.
Aye.
Allen.
Aye.
Charles. Aye. Smith.
Aye.
Sabers. Aye. Rice.
Aye.
Motion carries. Citizens' input. If you need to address the mayor or member of City Council on an item that is not on the agenda, excluding personnel items, come forward to the podium, state your name and your concerns. Presentations are limited to 3 minutes. Items will be considered, but no action will be taken this time. Before you start, Mr. Bender, give me a minute. I would like to thank the police department in the recent school thing. I got numerous calls, both from in the city and from surrounding communities, about the reaction our police force had to the prank call. Our police officers showed up, went immediately into the building without hesitation. So did the sheriff's department, as well as DCI and some others. Mr. Costard, thank your police officers. We appreciate what they've done.
We will. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Bender.
Awesome. Thanks. That's what I wanted to start with about that shooter, the false report there. It sounds like the cops did a good job. I heard a lot of good things about it. Okay, from my perspective, though, the school didn't do so good. Now I blame the school board. The intercom system wasn't working adequately. My son was brought from outside the school back inside the school from a teacher when he noticed on the Regional 911, Mitchell Regional 911. Teachers aren't properly trained. I think willing teachers should be allowed to conceal carry. Teachers who are willing to be prepared and trained and licensed, willing to put themselves in danger and be trained for it, willing to shoulder the burden of having to murder to protect kids behind them, something nobody wants to do, but I know there are people who are willing. And I think we should put a sign on the door that says F around and find out, right? Now, Dr. Graves screwed up informing the parents. He admitted it. He said something like, "My bad." Not good enough for me, and I wonder what he would have said if there were dead kids. Oops. I would tell you to ask him what really happened, but he'll lie to your face. He's a really good, talented liar, and that is why he's good at his job. He lies as easy as Deb Olson lies under oath. Perjury is what I'm accusing her of. Remember that, Sam Faustus? Anyway. Those two only know how to protect the system, not the children, kind of like you guys. Instead of pumping money into the police department like you should in such trying times, you care more about your entertainment empire, Mitchell Main Street and beyond. You know what critical infrastructure really needs to be fixed in this town with the blood money from the feds? There's a 15-inch water main feeding the hospital. It could blow at any time, and honestly, I would love to see the proverbial Avera Temple be torn down, starting at the greedy business manager, pencil pushers, and replaced by doctors who want to bring back the patient-doctor relationship and discard the death panels Obamacare has brought about. No more one-size universal standards for everybody. One size fits all, everyone gets Oxycontin and a booster. So how about that vaccine anyway? It is killing people, of course, and by your own save one person standard, you must denounce the vaccine, the COVID vaccine. Bring your trusted doctors back in here and to reassure us on how safe and effective it is. The public deserves clarity. See, I'm pretty hard on you guys because I know the school board will trans the kids, for instance. You guys are leaders in this community, and it's your jobs to use the weapon you all brought here tonight, your tongue. It's way mightier than the Second Amendment. And I know the school board would molest children. They did it for 2 years, forcing them to wear masks. They sold the kids out for $6 million, and you guys stood there and watched. I wonder how far it'll go before you leaders, decide to reestablish standards. misplaced priorities. I don't think we need a new high school. We need to fortify all our schools. Anyway, there's a vote on recreational weed coming up. I am 27. To put it in perspective, there will be weed in neighborhood convenience stores readily available for your kids. South Dakota already has medical marijuana, and we don't need to have any more here.
Okay, that's your time. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Later.
Anybody else wish to address council? Okay. Board of Adjustment, entertain a motion to...
Well, I was going to ask real
Oh,
quick,
go ahead.
is this an issue with hearing? Is that a city issue, or is
No,
that?
it's just the TV channel. We don't have any control over the TV channel. As long as our YouTube audio and video is working, that's all we have control over. They grab it from that. So it's working on YouTube. I've had JP confirmed he could hear us. But anyone who's trying to watch on TV is not getting audio. There's not anything I can do about it.
Thank you. That's what I thought, but I wanted to confirm. Getting texts.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, entertain a motion for Board of City Council recess, Citizens Board of Adjustment.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mrs. Charks. Further discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to set the date for Board of Adjustment hearing 11/7/22. Dakota Land and Property Management LLC has applied for conditional use permit to operate an automotive sales, repair, parts, and detailing business located at the northeast corner of Highway 37 and East 54th Avenue, legally described as Lot 12, Maui Farms, First Edition, the southwest quarter of Section 34, Township 103 North, Range 60 West of the 5th Primary Indian, Davis County, South Dakota. Said property is zoned UD.
Set the date.
Motion by Mrs. Chark, second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this?
This is outside of our city limits,
Yeah, but in the jurisdiction.
but in the
area.
jurisdiction, yeah.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to set the date for Board of Adjustment hearing 11/7/22. Genesis Farms LLC has applied for conditional use permit to operate a medical cannabis dispensary located at 716 North Raleigh Street, legally described as lots 18 through 21, Block 4, Raleigh's First Edition, City of Mitchell, Davis County, South Dakota. Property is zoned CB, Central Business.
Move set the date.
Motion by Mr. McCardle, second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? This is the old overtime restaurant, so anybody's wondering. Okay? Anybody out in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Reconvene the City Council. Entertain a motion Board of Adjustment to adjourn City Council reconvene regular session. Motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mr. Barrington. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Infant cemetery upgrade to be sponsored by the Mitchell Exchange Club. Mr. Brewster, come on up.
All right.
Speak loud so everybody.
Okay. All right, what we got here is the Mitchell Exchange Club 29 years ago put together, the city wanted to do something with an infant cemetery, and the Exchange Club, they got together, got a plan, the Mitchell Exchange Club funded it, and they made some bushes in the shape of a heart around the front monuments. And those shrubs have kind of run their course. They've replaced them throughout the years and stuff, and it's getting kind of run down. And one of our members was out there and talked to Aaron Willis, and they were trying to, they had some plans in there to make some upgrades or whatever, and they looked at various options, and they were pretty expensive. And so it came back with one of our members working with Aaron, and they came up with a plan to put in a heart-shaped border with cement, because the other options they came up with, it was going to be hard for the city to have to mow around them and trim everything and stuff, and this would be easy for them to mow right up to the edge. It would be heart-shaped with the cement, and so it would actually be better and more than what it is right now, because you can't really tell that it's supposed to be in the shape of a heart with the way the bushes are and stuff. But this way they could mow up to it, they could put some benches on it, maybe some planters, and it would be easy maintenance for the city. The Exchange Club got some bids on it, and they're ready to move ahead, and the Exchange Club is willing to pay for the improvements 100%. And so I guess what we're doing is just looking for your guys' approval to move ahead. They said they got about a month's worth of time that they can get the cement work and stuff done, so it would just be a matter of the city going in the spring and planting grass and doing the aesthetics there. So I guess we're looking for an approval from you guys to move ahead with the project. And
Okay.
Sure appreciate all the great things that you guys do for our city, so I'll go ahead and move approval. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, motion by Mrs. Charks, second by Mr. Barrington. Did you have questions, Steve?
I was just wondering if the Golf and Cemetery Board,
Aaron Willis, I think, was in favor of doing it. And
because that would be the procedure it should go through before it comes to us.
You are correct. Kevin Nelson from Park and Rec. The Golf and Cemetery Board did have some conversation on this, not a direct action, but they had some conversation on it, and everybody seemed fine with it at that time as far as just taking a straw poll within the group.
Okay.
Was the city going to pull the shrubs and the trees and everything?
the city is going to, Aaron Willis said his group would take care of removing the shrubs, and then Shane Taylor and them would go through and do all the cement
There
work.
aren't many left.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Okay, further discussion? Anybody in the audience want to address this? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
All right, thank you.
Action to approve agreement A 2022-40 Cadwell Park Crow's Nest and Shade Structure Project 2022-34. Mr. Schrader.
Yep, Mr. Mayor, Council. The proposed agreement will provide design, bidding, and construction services for the Cadwell Shade Structure Project. That was brought to you. There was a lot of conversation last week, or at the last council meeting, excuse me. Civarella Design has provided a full A&E team to complete the project. The design will be ready for bids in December. Construction is planned in 2023. I think it would be a good idea for us to leave the project, to be completed in 2023, to be completed prior to the state amateur baseball tournament. I think it would be wise to leave in there an option for 2024 in case they can, for better dollars, for a better bid. At least leave it open-ended that way. But we will try to push for 2023 completion. Staff does recommend City Council approval of the attached agreement from Civarella Design for a lump sum fee of $32,700. With that, I'll open it to any questions.
I just want to confirm, so with that, the design would be done by the end of this year?
Correct.
Okay.
Design will be done by December. Technically, they'll have a completion date of before the state amateur, but they want to have an alternate to allow them in case they can save some substantial money by letting them go longer.
Correct.
That make sense?
Yep.
The information that we were given contains a lot of pictures of projects that they've done. Are any of these similar to, or give us any indication of what ours might look like, or is it?
I don't think it's indication of what it might look like. I know they'll work closely with Kevin Nelson and his group, along with the Baseball Association, to make sure that it looks the way that we want it to. And I'm confident with their past projects that we'll have a good project when we're done.
Yeah, I just didn't know if any of these were similar to what we were looking at. So there are a couple that you were like, oh, no, that's not it. Just, okay, this one.
Be determined.
Thanks.
Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve agreement A 2022-41, design and bidding services for jetty sidewalk with Bros Engineering. Mr. Schrader.
Mr. Mayor, Council, the proposed agreement will provide design and bidding services for the Jetty Sidewalk project and will be located between Franks Bay Park and Lions Bay Park. The project consists of approximately 6,140 feet of 8-foot bike trail. This is part of the EDA grant award, the $2 million project with a $1 million EDA grant. This design will more than likely be very challenging with the topography around the lake as far as getting the path ADA compliant. So I do see this as a challenging project, but something that will be good for the lake. And staff does recommend approval of the agreement with Bros Engineering in an amount not to exceed $86,700.
So, Joe, the $1 million grant that we received, that is part of the design of the, okay.
So the professional services are outside of the EDA grant. That's coming from the city portion. That's part of the 2023 budget.
Okay.
And so that timing of this, if this gets approved, we pay them, that design gets done, and then it's melded with the design of the jetty building and everything else?
Correct.
Which is also dependent on what happens in the lake and
Correct.
everything else? Okay. Just making sure I know how all that fits together.
Okay. Further discussion?
And just thinking of possibilities, so does this work have to be timed exactly with the jetty building in the lake, or could they put all of this in and then go over the top of it and other things depending on what happened with the lake design?
Correct. I do believe we need to be careful on what is approved at what time, depending on the EDA funding source. I do believe that the project is not completed as a whole, we may have to forfeit the EDA grant. Because the sidewalk project as well as the jetty project is all tied together as one project.
Okay. Okay.
Good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just thinking of timing.
Okay.
We've met with the EDA group, and we have extended our completion dates 1 year beyond to help us coordinate with the lake project.
I guess my point is to put the sidewalk in and then have, hey, we're going to do some lake roads and other stuff and then drive over the top of it or scoop it back out and say, oh, we'll replace it afterwards, that type of stuff. It still might be a possibility, but I'd like to avoid that if possible.
Yep,
I mean,
we
it's
have
over a mile of bike path.
Yep.
That's a lot of concrete. So.
We have the window there to coordinate those projects.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, we need a motion.
Oh, I'll move approval of the Bros Engineering Design Concept.
Okay, motion by Mr. Rice. Second by Mrs. Charks. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve agreement A/2022-42, second addendum to joint pipeline and water supply agreement with BY Water. Rural Water, we would like to have this postponed
Correct.
until November. Move to postpone. Motion by Mr. McCardle. Second by Mr. Barrington. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Collection, hearing, and action on to approve resolution of necessity R 2022-65 Quincy Street improvements. Give us a second because Mr. Schrader has to call a resident that was not able to make it. There you go.
Blair, Joe with the City of Mitchell. We have you on with the City Council. We're going to start our hearing here shortly. Okay.
Okay. All right, Mr. Schrader, you speaking to this?
Yes, sir. So with that, we will start the hearing for the special assessment for the 600, 700, and 800 blocks of Quincy Street. This project will consist of roughly a half a mile of asphalt surfacing with gravel base. It will be a rural section, which matches the streets in and around that area. The project is planned to be started in 2023 with the completion, started in 2022 with a completion in 2023, which would allow the assessment hearing in 2024. Once the project is completed, they will have 30 days to pay that. If not paid, it will be placed on their taxes for a period of 10 years at 8% interest. And with that, I will open it up for any public comment.
Jeremy, you want to speak first? Sure. Hang on, Mr. Goddess, you'll have a chance here in just a second.
Jeremy Jensen. I own the property to the west, I guess, of the proposed road area. Speaking aside from the assessment, I think it's a project that needs to be done for the traffic usage on that road. What we've seen recently here within the last 3 to 5 months, there is traffic that goes through that dirt road. A developing commercial area of the city, the last dirt road on the interstate. I think it would just be a good project to have done, either it be commuters from, the Cabela's area, through Trail King or vice versa. So I think the road is traveled quite extensively, considering just the gravel fill as opposed to the asphalt to save cost. I just think the usage on that road is just going to be a maintenance headache with the gravel. So as a developing, growing company located on I-90, I'd like to be in favor of the asphalt project.
Okay. And you build a new building in the what, northwest corner of that, right?
Southwest, I guess, south, or we are the west section of the new area, towards...
You'd be on the west end of that the red...
Correct, yep.
Box, okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Goddess, do you want to say anything?
Yeah. My dog's got to stay. My dog wants to speak. I don't see the point in doing that road part way. I think that it has to be, that tar road needs to be completed. To me, it's good. It makes no sense to do just part of it. And that's what the plan is right now, and I don't understand that at all. Because gravel roads out there in that area, when it's wet, doesn't work. We've seen it where the road graders sink in the road. Semis do the same when we have wet time. In the middle of a drought, everything's just fine, but that's not always the case here. So I think in order to be effective, that road has to go all the way through where, there's just a portion I can't see us doing us any good to not do the whole thing.
So we are, just to be clear, the project is going from Miller to Wisconsin, that whole half mile, which would be adjacent to Mr. Goddess's property. I believe what Mr. Goddess is referring to is the section of gravel that is east of Wisconsin. Now, that's not to say we couldn't do an assessment project next year to finish that asphalt out. That gravel stretch actually is in better shape than probably Wisconsin itself. So I think...
I don't know, it can be, there's no ditches there, there's nothing to take care of the water,
Blair, maybe I'll chime in quick too. Joe, is he talking about the section from his property up to Trail E's?
Correct.
Yeah, maybe I misunderstood too. I would like to see that done. I think Blair would too. It don't make much sense to have a new paved road to more gravel. What would it take to, how much more feet are we talking there? Probably 300-400 feet?
So in the way this assessment was approached was we looked at a non-improved right-of-way that connects to a gravel surfaced road. And like I said, not to say at a later date we couldn't do asphalt surfacing the rest of Quincy Street. But at this time, the assessment brought forward is just from Miller to Wisconsin.
It doesn't say it, that's part of the yard, you gotta fence the whole yard to keep the critters out and the dogs in. So I don't see the sense in doing, part of our project here either.
How long would it take to get something together, at least for a bid, to do something like that? All the equipment's going to be out there. I mean, are we talking this is I mean, we're going to get something in for road base this fall, but if this is going to happen in spring anyway, and this is going to,
So the asphalt would not be installed until 2023 regardless, just where we're at in the year, and we probably, the amount of fill we need to bring in for that section of the road, we'd want it to settle out over the winter anyway. To do another assessment project, it could be done within 2 months from start to brought to council.
So what you're saying is we could do this assessment and come forward with another assessment to do the rest of this and make it a full paved all the way through there.
Correct.
Okay.
Is there a reason that we didn't do the rest of it to begin with?
The reason being is that it's still, we're working on just the unimproved right-of-way section. There's still a road east of Wisconsin, it's just gravel.
It's dirt from Wisconsin to
I see.
Miller.
Jensen's place. Miller, yeah.
I'm in favor of what we're talking about for my portion of the assessment, and I guess if we could talk about it this winter and get it moving forward, I mean, that's where I would stand on it, but.
Joe, is Quint Street right in front of Trail Ease, is that gravel, or is it paved up to the end of Trail Ease and then gravel after that?
So if you,
It's paved to the parking lot.
It's paved to their parking lot?
Well,
Right.
that's certain. Right there.
It's paved till there?
Yep.
Okay.
and that section is a curb and gutter section, and then it moves to gravel after that.
I think it should be mentioned that either Trail King or Trail East paid for that road.
Say that again, Blair?
He said,
Either Trail King or Trail East paid for that road when it went in front of them.
I guess I specifically can't speak to that, because that was, I think that would have been, what, in the early 2000s, maybe in the 90s? I don't know.
I certainly can't speak to it, I don't know. We can look into that.
You should check.
We'll look into that.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
So we're talking about the section in front of Trail Ease then, is that
Yes.
correct?
We're talking about the dirt road that goes from Miller
Right.
to Wisconsin.
Right, that's-
And then the
that's
second
what the current-
easement, the second assessment will be
Gravel.
from where the pavement ends to Wisconsin.
Right, and they would have say, and if they would agree or disagree with that assessment,
Correct.
they could come. Yeah, as long as they have an opportunity.
They would have an opportunity to speak to that assessment.
Okay.
That will get this pavement done, which Mr. Jensen has already got his building built and ready to, I think you're working on it, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and approve this section.
Okay,
Last one here.
so motion by Mr. Allen to approve,
Second.
second by Mr. Rice. Further discussion? Anybody else in the audience wish to address this? Roll call, please.
Barrington.
Aye.
Allen.
Aye.
Sharks. Aye. Smith.
Aye.
Sabers.
Aye.
Rice.
Aye.
Dosher. McCardle.
Motion carries. Action to approve Resolution R 2022-66, plat of Lot 41 of the Island First Edition. Mr. Jenigas, a long time since we've seen you up here.
Sorry, my boss told me I didn't have to come to the last one. Planning Commission recommended approval of this 4-0 with 3 absent. It fits their master plan out in the area. There is a little bit of floodplain in the ditch essentially out there, but that's it. There's plenty of room for them to build.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Rice, second by Mr. McCardle. He's eked in under you. All right. All those in favor of the motion, well, excuse me, any further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve Resolution R 2022-67, plat of Lot 3, Block 6 of the Woodland Heights First Edition. Mr. Jenigas.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Planning Commission recommended approval of this one as well, 4-0 with 3 absent. It fits in with their master plan. No issues from Public Works at all with it.
Motion by Mr. McCardle. Second by Mr. Smith. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Action to approve Resolution R 2022-68, plat of West Plum Avenue, Poplar Drive, lots 13 through 26, Block 2, lots 1 through 4, Block 3, and lots 1 through 8, Block 4, MLC addition. Mr. Jennings.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Planning Commission recommended approval of this, 4-0 with 3 absent. Since Planning Commission, LEPC's approved Poplar Drive for that name. That had to be done. Any roads in town have to go through LEPC. There were no concerns there. Planning Commission approved the master plan for this area as Moeller Lumber continues to move further south towards the interstate. So that was done September 12th. We have the drainage for out in that area that we know will have to get done before any building permits will be issued for there when they rework some of their pond and stuff like that.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Rice. Second by Mrs. Charks. Further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to address this? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Second reading on ordinance O 2022-15, revising section 6-1-4I3 of the Mitchell City Code regarding the keeping of hogs within the city. Mr. Johnson.
All right, well, this one's pretty simple, so I won't go back through all of it. Really, the only thing to note is that at the last meeting, that weight limit was moved from 150 to 200 pounds, so you'll see that new 200-pound limit in the ordinance tonight. And with that, I guess we can open it back up to council for questions or public commentary.
Hi there, my name is Jenna Scheich. I and my husband Zeb live south of town, so though I don't have a vested interest necessarily in having pigs in town, I am a pig owner, and so I do have a vested interest in pigs. My concern is that there are some pretty big decisions being made pretty quickly upon the impression given by one pig. In the U.S. right now, there are about 250,000 to 1 million pigs kept as pets. And that's just an estimate because there's obviously no, census for pigs. Of those pigs, 90% of them are rehomed before they reach 2 years of age because people don't realize what they're getting into. The average pig lives for 20 years. They grow in height until they are 3 years old, and they grow in weight until they are 5 years old. And a mini pig is anything under 300 pounds. So what happens when that 200-pound pig that was allowed is now not 200 pounds? The other issue is only about 5% of those pigs stay with the families that they were first brought into for the entirety of their life. Reasons being is that, 1, the size, obviously, 2, that they can become aggressive if not properly trained, and 3, the zoning laws. When I first got our pig, she's almost 3 years old. March will be 3 years that we've had her, so I've had her for most of her life. I researched for over a year, and one of the very first things that you will find when you research pigs is check zoning laws. That's the very first thing. Number 2 is to find out if you have a vet in your area that will treat your pig. Here in South Dakota, your pet pig is a farm animal, and they will be treated as such. They will be vaccinated as such, and I don't know that there's a vet here that will fix female pigs, because that's just not something that's done with farm animals. And so pigs are also of breeding age at 4 months old. So that's another big thing to take into consideration. Even though you're not allowing to be bred, what happens when they're not? And so of all of those things and the limits that people want, what we find are underfeeding so that they're starved to reach a certain size or stay a certain size, that there's inbreeding that happens, because what happens a lot of times is when if you're buying an animal, say you want to buy a horse, you want to see that horse's dad, right? You want to see their mom. That's what you do. they'll show you those pigs. That pig could be 4 months old. So you're looking at a 35-pound, 14-inch tall pig that looks great, except it's not even full grown yet. So I guess my question is, where are they going? Where do these pigs go when they're now too big? What happens when they get out? Has anybody tried to catch a pig? Because I'm here to tell you, they're pretty fast, and especially in town. Everyone wants to say, pigs are clean, pigs are smart. They absolutely are. But what also comes with that intelligence is the need to be stimulated. They have to be entertained. I work from home and I am with my pig 24 hours a day, and I'm here to tell you she can get into some things with me even being right directly there. So that's my only concern. I just think some research needs to be done into what happens with these pigs when people don't want them. Every single day I'm in a lot of different Facebook groups for pigs, and what I find is dozens of people trying to rehome, people picking up dumped pigs, especially in places like in the South where they're pretty popular. There are a lot of pigs looking for homes, and all of the rescues are overflowing. They're finding sick pigs, starved pigs that they're trying to find places for or funding for, because the other thing is most people aren't picking up a 10-year-old grumpy, abused pig. It's just going to live in a rescue for its whole life, or you're taking it to the sale barn. And I don't think that's the intention. My heart breaks for their family. I wouldn't want to be in that position. I could tell you if I was in that position, I'd move flat out, because I do. I'm committed to my pig. I'm stubborn. But like I said, number one is you check your zoning laws, and I don't think the rules for an entire city should change based upon the irresponsibility of one person. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. You want to say anything, Rochelle?
I guess so. Okay, so I do have the papers that John asked me to get, some proof that my neighbors didn't mind that I had Bruce. So when I went around, and these are immediate neighbors on this page, like we share yards and sides, and I can see them. And these are people in town that heard about Bruce, saw, everything that she said is definitely a concern. And it's true, they do get abused, and people are very neglectful. They are with dogs, they are with cats. Telling me that we're not going to pay attention to the rules we put behind the ordinance that would make it a little more safe for the pigs, and to be a little more tolerant of just not saying no. The fact that we're looking into it and we put a little thought behind it would make it harder for these people to be neglectful. Not everybody's going to run out and get a pig just because we are saying you can have one now. You know what I mean? And telling me that we can't have this ordinance would be like telling, I get that there's an overflow of, dog rescues and cat rescues and animal rescues and this and that, but that's with everything. That's like there's adults who don't take care of their children. They end up in overflow. They end up in foster care. That's like telling a new family, you can't have babies because there's already too many irresponsible people. Pets are a lot of work. All pets are a lot of work. Just because some are bigger or smaller than others and maybe a little more work than others doesn't mean they shouldn't. Bruce is a domesticated animal who's been trained. He is not, a wild animal who I trained. I'm not asking to move in a gorilla or a tiger and saying, trust me, he's going to be good. Other animals, other pigs will be like Bruce, and yeah, there will be that one, but if it's in a fence and it's fixed and it's following all the guidelines, it's going to be like that annoying dog behind the fence too. There is really no difference when it comes to pigs and dogs in my view. I live with one every day. He's inside, outside, and we could talk about it all day long, but somebody else's irresponsibility shouldn't be, I shouldn't have to suffer for it, I am a good pig owner. She's a good pig owner. Well, there's going to be more of us, you know what I mean? So, and like I said from the very beginning, I do take responsibility for being unaware of my ordinance. That is all my fault. I have nothing to say about that except for sorry. But I don't want that to make me look like a bad pig owner, you know? So I think that's all I have to say.
Okay.
So thank you guys, though. I do appreciate all of your time.
Thank you.
So,
Any questions for her before she goes to sit down? Go ahead.
okay.
Thank you.
Rochelle, brought up the fact of a vet in town. Have you taken your pig to a local vet? I don't have to mention who it is, but
Right.
do you have a local?
Not here, because I left there and he had just had all his shots and all his stuff. So there are lots of vets out here, mobile, and they are farm vets. I'm not sure that I'm going to get one that's going to come to my house. I might have to drive to it, but he'll obviously get a vet. You know, just, I don't have a dog vet either here yet. I'm 4 weeks into living here, so I didn't check ordinance for my dogs either when I moved here, you know. I'm not living in an HOA, and for some reason, I didn't even think I had to look. So, but yeah, I'm going to have to work on all that. I do think I might have to drive to take him, though. But I have means to get him there to a vet. Okay.
Anything else? Thank you.
I have a question for Justin. So we haven't had an ordinance that allowed pigs, but we've obviously had pet pigs in town. How does that play in legally? I have a picture here from the Daily Republic in August 25th, 2017, of a pet pig at Corn Palace Week, standing outside a ride that was in the newspaper. So obviously at that time, pet pigs were in town. I'm assuming there are other pet pigs in town. And just because we don't know about them and there's no complaint, there's no active legal recourse?
Yeah, I guess the obvious answer there is that we can't enforce something that we don't know about. So if there's other instances of pet pigs in town that are currently happening, apparently we're not aware of them. As far as the specific instances that you pointed out, I can't say why those weren't enforced. As far as I know, there was never any report made on them or anything along those lines. Certainly not anything that came across my desk.
So if we allow an activity without it being allowed by ordinance, does it become, and so we don't allow pigs, but there are pigs that people have and we don't do anything about it? Does that make that ordinance null and void?
No, it does not.
Good luck, Mr. Coster. You're going to love this one.
Well, I'll move approval on second reading of ordinance 02022-15.
Okay. Motion by Mrs. Charks. To approve.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Savers. All right. Further discussion?
Well, I've heard pros and cons, and this is obviously new. When Steve brought to our attention a few years ago of the pigs, it was multi-number of pigs that was in the household, I believe.
Yeah, that was a breeding situation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, that they wanted to reproduce and sell. We're here, it's one animal, one pet. Obviously, any time that we put an ordinance in place, there's always the ability to retract it. I guess I'm fine with moving forward and giving it a try to see if there's some issues. Like I said, I've had both sides say we should or give it a try, and others saying, why would we want to bring a farm animal into town? So I can understand the concern out there.
I think Ed's Pet World used to have one running around their store.
Yeah. Who does?
The other pet store
They used to.
Yeah.
one on Havens had one.
I was torn on this subject when it was first presented, and so I asked probably 40 people over the last 2 weeks their thoughts. Probably 3/4 of responses were, I don't care, what the heck, go ahead, try it, was that. So, I support it. If it turns out we made a wrong decision, we can rescind it.
I mean, go ahead.
So if you would put an ordinance in place and you rescinded it, would it, and maybe this is a question for you, Justin, then those that are, obviously, is there such thing as a grandfather clause, those that were approved during the ordinance and then you rescind it, that we're no longer letting new pigs in?
That's probably something you'd need to decide when you're repealing it. If you wanted to grant that type of leniency, you'd be able to do that when you pass the repeal.
I guess what I'm getting at is if the council decides to so choose, vote on doing this, and then all of a sudden a year from now, we decide to take the ordinance away, I think that makes the hardship for these pig owners even worse. I think what I'm trying to get, I think if the council is in the mood to pass this, I think we need to take a look at some kind of grandfather thing. Very tough in my mind for us to say yes, and then all of a sudden a year come along, let's just rip this child in their mind out of their heart and say, now you got to take it out and move it someplace else. I don't know, unless there's some other kind of scenario out there that we do that with, but.
The only problem, Marty, might be that this particular pig has had countless complaints, countless animal control calls. Might it be in a situation where this pig owner might have caused us to rescind our ordinance, and then we said, oh, but you're okay. So that's the only problem I see with that.
I think
But I would think that would fall under the nuisance of pet control that we have, that would currently.
You're right. It would be like dogs and cats that are
limits.
Yes, yes.
So I think if you had a pig, this is different situation. You have a pig that would be out of control and obviously would bite people or something like that, it would be no different in my mind as in the pet control area. Maybe I'm wrong, Chief, that obviously that could be removed from the city as we do any kind of dog that's a danger to the public, I guess.
We don't list it as dogs, it's pets, correct?
Correct, yeah.
So it could be a snake, it could be a rat, it could be a rabbit, it could be a cat, it could be a dog, it could be a pig, it could be a cow, it could be a horse, although we don't allow horses and cows in the city limits.
Yeah, I have a lot more concern.
That we know of.
Yeah, I have a lot more concern about snakes. I've been hearing about the pythons that are propagating in Florida, and I'm like, we're worried about a single pig in a house, and it's got to abide by all the same rules as dogs, and we can all have a long discussion about people's pets, and some take care of them and some don't, but we don't say because there are some bad pet owners, then we're not going to allow anyone to have pets. So I just think that common sense would say, people have bunnies and they have, you name the animal with a few exceptions, obviously, and people have them, and like Steve said, a lot of them we don't even know about, but I certainly don't have any concerns about this, and the ones, if there are those that cause us to say this was a big mistake, then we deal with that particular animal, and we don't, throw out the baby with the bathwater, so.
And that would be my plan, I guess, for the initial enforcement is if this does get approved tonight, you start handling issues on a case-by-case basis. So you might have one house that's fine with their pig, and you might have one area that's a problem. Well, the one that's a problem you can deal with under the animal control provisions that we already have in place. If all of a sudden you're starting to see that a large number of these pigs are problematic or something like that, then you can come back to readdressing the ordinance in general. But I think the intention would be to try to handle them under the animal control provisions before you get to that step.
Could I make a potential?
State your name so people can.
Jenna Scheich. Is there the ability to make a, like a permit, a requirement?
We tried that with dogs and it didn't work.
Well, I mean, because pigs are a little bit different, that you have to have a fence, and it can't just be a cute little picket fence, because they can root it up, move it, under it, whatever they want to do. That maybe having a permit with a fee would at least eliminate people who think, we can have pigs, let's go get one, and then it's a problem, and now we're, trying to find a home for a pig, because that's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid that,
I guess you have that problem with dogs. They can dig under fences. They can jump over fences. So, where do you draw the line? So
Right.
what we're doing here is trying to be fair, take it as a reasonable approach. I think we're doing that. So we've heard your concerns and weighed them. I really don't see what else we can do. It shouldn't be that big of an issue in my mind, but.
I'd just add that if you were starting to have those types of problems, then that would be an animal control issue.
Right.
And once it becomes an animal control issue, you can put those requirements into place.
And we address it,
So
yes.
I think it would be part of that process.
And keep in mind, we're saying one, singular pig.
Right.
Per household. We're not saying you can have 3 pigs or.
right, I understand, I own one, she lives in my house, and I know exactly what it is that she's capable of. And she's trained just as well as Bruce, and I can walk her on a little leash, and she does tricks and eats treats and is great too. But, and like she has said, we're good pet owners. That's my only concern, is all I'm saying, is that it's not like a dog. They don't dig under a fence like a dog. They rip up your entire yard in an afternoon because they're bored, because they can. That's what they're made to do. That's the only difference. It's not just a jump over a fence, under a fence. It's a little more than that. That's my only concern.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Motion to adopt. Motion by Mrs. Jerks. Second by Mr. Smith. Further discussion. Roll call.
Sharks.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Sabers. Rice.
Aye.
Dosher. McCardle. Barrington.
Aye.
Allen.
Aye.
Motion carries. We're adjourned.